Madam Chair, members, for the record, Matt Beienburg, Director of Education Policy at the Goldwater Institute, here in support of the bill. In K-12 schools across the country, including Arizona, politically charged content is finding its way into the classroom. As Senator Bartow mentioned, there are existing state and federal laws that ensure parents have the right to access those materials, but in practice, parents aren't actually having any way to meaningfully exercise those rights. And so we've heard that schools are often transparent. They may post their curriculum or their state standards and describe what those are. Those only give you a vague outline of what's being used. They don't get into the specific materials. So folks like Real Clear Politics have done investigations, found things like the 1619 Project are being used in over 3,500 classrooms in all 50 states, typically as supplemental materials. Parents, if they're trying to find out where to enroll their student, right now are not able to find out whether or not the schools near them are doing that. They can go and ask and say, are you teaching the 1619 Project? And they'll say it's not part of our adopted curriculum. So it is essential that this bill, and there's two parts of the bill, one of which, as Senator Bartow said, is for prospective and current parents, part of which is for the public. So it does require the posting of the list of materials, just a simple, essentially, bibliography or via Google Doc of those materials to be on the school's website or a Google Doc available for parents, other teachers, the public to see what's actually going into the classroom. The bill also then allows for parents who see something on that list and are more curious to ask more questions to then go specifically to see those resources. Right now, in Arizona, for our charter schools and our district schools, information is posted around graduation rates, A through F letter grades, performance, enrollment data, all sorts of material is put online, publicly available, and yet for the content that is more significant for parents, which is the actual materials being used, that information is essentially in a black box. And so this bill would at least provide parents the universe of the materials that are being used, so then they can follow up and ask. Parents who have asked and say, we're interested in what you're teaching around equity or CRT, the districts come back and tell them, you need to narrow your request, there's too many resources, you need to tell us what you want to know. But if the parents don't have that list of materials to even ask for in the first place, they just sort of, it's a chicken and the egg, they kind of get run in circles. So
10 seconds.
The teachers' unions have tried to argue that this would require posting of all materials at the start of the year. It's very clear it lets teachers flexibly adapt their lessons. Teachers in Arizona across the country have expressed how this would actually help them improve their trade. Thank you very much. Happy for questions.
Thank you. And you talked very fast to get all that in. I loved it. Okay. Any questions? Mr. Sierra?
You said a word in your testimony, Madam Chair, thank you. Politically charged, I mean, what does that even mean?
Madam Chair, Representative, thank you for the question. Politically charged, I would say, is content that has a political valence to it that's not focused on the academic rigor of the content. And one of the advantages of this transparency bill is it doesn't actually require anyone to adjudicate what is appropriately political or not. It just says, make it transparent, make it public, and parents themselves can be the arbiter and say, is this appropriate or not, or do I have questions and concerns, and do I need to speak to the teacher or the administrator?
Yeah, but to that point, you said there's a bunch of politically charged, and that's why we need it.
Madam Chair, Representative, I think that we've seen a bulk of evidence across the country, materials such as the 1619 Project, which has been academically discredited by historians at prestigious institutions. You may, or others may, have a disagreement about what constitutes a political material, but again, that's where this bill does not try to go in and say, you're allowed to teach this, you're not allowed to teach this. It says you're free to teach whatever it is that you would like, but as a taxpayer-funded school, a public school, that information should be something that's public for the parents to be able to see without having to jump through hoops, going through public records requests, or otherwise having barriers put up for them to access that information.
And Mr. Sierra, when you do to that point, you still have to come back through me.
My apologies.
Mr. Kavanaugh.
Politically charged is anything that we spend more than a half an hour on like this.
Madam Chair?
Yes,
Quick
Mr.
question,
Kaiser.
thank you. So under the Parents' Bill of Rights, currently parents are allowed to get access to curriculum. What happens if they get denied? What is the recourse they have? And what if they just get ignored, denied, not answered?
Madam Chair, Representative, thank you for that. So actually, as Senator Bartow mentioned, there's both federal and state law, which guarantees that parents should have the right to inspect any of the instructional materials that are there. And essentially what we've seen is these efforts, there's just one instance that was mentioned earlier of parents who submit those requests and essentially get stonewalled. So as in most cases in state law, there are things on the books that don't necessarily have any enforcement behind it. So to parents who have gone and parents have written in the Arizona Republic, for instance, saying they had concerns about the content. They spoke to the teacher sent them to the curriculum coach. The coach then talked to them, sent them in circles, tried to sit down with the principal, didn't get that information. So those, right now, the parents don't have recourse. This bill does put in place a very generous provision that essentially says if there's a disagreement and content is not being posted, then the parent can have a very specific mechanism just to reach out to the principal and try and say, please make sure this information is posted. If they don't, then it goes to the school board. They have a chance to do it. Only then can they then pursue additional remedies. So this bill would actually put in place a mechanism to implement those rights that are already understood by both federal and state law. Those existing Parents' Bill of Rights and federal laws sound great, but they don't have an actual mechanism in place to ensure that the parents can access and be aware of that information.
Ms. Schwiebert.
Madam Chair, thank you, sir, for being here. So you said that they don't have recourse, but Arizona is a school choice state, correct?
Madam Chair, Representative, that's correct.
So parents could choose
Through the
to
chair,
go to another-
please.
So, Madam Chair,
Thank you.
so parents could choose to go to another school. That could be their recourse, correct?
Madam Chair, Representative, thank you for the question. And that's a great point and illustrates part of the problem, is that a parent shouldn't have to have their child in a school find material that is clearly not academically appropriate and now be faced with the decision of grumbling to a school board who may or may not be sympathetic to them, or take their kid out of school away from their friends, their established environment. It's essential that parents be able to, as a school choice state, be able to look at this and say, what is the actual information that's being taught at the schools, take that into account, and decide, yes, this does look like a school that's prioritizing academics. And again, folks are going to disagree about what is political or what is appropriate, but to make that information available for current parents, prospective parents, the public, and other teachers to be able to see that information shouldn't be something that's controversial.